Hello, Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity, and today we're going to talk about something I've been talking about for decades now, and that is about fiber, specifically as it relates to found in Whole Foods. So if you have a crappy product like Wonder Bread, I don't think they make Wonder Bread anymore, and then they just add some fiber in, that doesn't count. Keep in mind that fiber, both soluble and insoluble, have come with other nutrients. So sometimes the story isn't just about the fiber, it's also about the nutrients that may come in with a whole grain or a fruit or a vegetable or something like that. Just as a refresher, we have basically three types of fibers. There's insoluble, so consider roughage. Nothing digests this. It has almost like a housekeeping scrubbing effect on the gut. I personally like to eat the entire peanut shell because it's just way too much work to get to that little nugget of peanut, and so that's insoluble fiber. Certain vegetables, think like asparagus and broccoli, are loaded with insoluble fiber, nothing digested. Soluble fiber can be digested by the bacteria in our gut. We don't digest it, but the bacteria do. That results in two things. First of all, the growth of bacteria that we generally want, even though there's some variation there. And you also have compounds produced by that breakdown, like butyrate and acetate, that are generally have their own health benefits. There's also a third type of fiber considered resistant starch, kind of not our normal. It happens when carbohydrates are cooked and cooled, so think like cooked and cooled potatoes, sticky rice, and it also fosters the growth of a healthier microbiome. So why am I bringing this up? Because we've certainly, fiber and plant-based compounds have been demonized. We have the keto crowd that generally has very low fiber intake. We have the carnivore crowd, again, very low fiber intake. And, over time, fiber has been shown to be beneficial for our health. There's really not an argument on that anymore. This study it's a meta-analysis. They looked at 64 studies, over 3.5 million people, on how fiber intake had relationship to both all-cause mortality, so dying from anything, cardiovascular mortality, dying from heart disease or stroke, and cancer mortality. And they found that overall fiber intake, lowered risk of all-cause mortality by 23%, cardiovascular death by 26%, and cancer by 22%. Just by making dietary changes, we've made a huge dent in your risk of dying from these particular scenarios. Looking at things a little bit more specifically, insoluble fiber had a higher protective factor for all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease, and soluble from whole grains, cereals, and veggies, lower risk of all-cause mortality, dying from anything. And the nuts and seeds had a pretty potent effect on cardiovascular disease mortality, 43% lower risk. Keep in mind, when we talk about seeds, we're not talking about seed oils. So gnawing on different seeds as a snack or tossed on a salad is what we're talking about, not sunflower oil. It's chewing on sunflower seeds. And this one probably has, because it's so protective on cardiovascular disease, probably has a lot more to do with like the tocopherols. So think alpha tocopherol, but gamma and delta are very high in nuts and seeds. That probably had just as much to do with the protection as the fiber itself. But the take-home message is that fibers, when they come attached to our whole grains, our veggies, our fruits, they are very good for you. There's really not an argument. And if somebody says that's not true, they are really, blissfully in their world, ignoring a huge body of evidence that suggests that these compounds, when taken as part of our diet, are very good for you across the board, regardless of what you want to not die from. As always, I'll post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.